Welcome back to Get Connected. I'm your host, Con Jackson. What a cool job I have. I get to stand in the Caribbean. We're down here in Colombia and talk via satellite back to America. Welcome back to Get Connected. I'm your host, Con Jackson. And today we're celebrating the 200th anniversary of Cartagena. But first, it's time for our Health Beat segment. And today we're talking to Master Chef Joe and Dr. Wilson about lowering cholesterol while keeping your food yummy. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, Con.
All right, Dr. Wilson, what have you learned from the Master Chef himself today?
What have I learned from Joe? Well, looking at the plates in front of me, this is fantastic and such. The aroma here is unbelievable. This is visually very appetizing, and this is good food. And this is something that I think that is fairly easy to prepare. It's nutritious. It's low in saturated fat. It's low in cholesterol, and it's part of a mindset. It's part of changing your lifestyle. And if we can begin to incorporate this into our diets, we're going to be the better for it in terms of reducing not only cholesterol but salt intake and controlling multiple risk factors.
Well, it certainly sounds like you learned quite a bit. Now, Joe, we'll turn the table on you. And what have you learned from the doctor this morning?
Well, I mean, I think just the importance of understanding your status, monitoring the numbers, keeping tabs on yourself, where you stand in the world of cholesterol, and communicating with your doctor and having a plan, like a real plan to address it. In my case, it was a three-pronged approach of eating better, low cholesterol food, that kind of lifestyle, activity, sports in my case, and then medication as well. So I attacked it in a three-pronged way. It totally worked for me. So, but keeping in communication with your doctor and knowing where you stand, knowing the numbers, that was a big learning experience for me.
Joe, what is your worry when it comes to cholesterol?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just the numbers. I was 35 years old, I was overweight, I was not active, and the doctor was like, look, this is a wake-up call, you got to take control of this. Being in the food business, being in the restaurant business, you think that you have to eat a lot of food that's bad for you. And that's certainly not the case. For me, the turning point was looking at food as a source of energy to fuel my ambition to live, my ambition to be athletic. So healthful eating was something that kind of came naturally. When I looked to my Italian roots, Italy has some of the most incredible food, and it's all about ingredient-driven cooking. And your pantry is really your arsenal against diseases like high cholesterol, and can really kind of help you eat in a flavorful but healthful way. And some of these recipes are on heartinthekitchen.com, which is this website. We've been working with Lipitor on trying, working with Pfizer on trying to create recipes that are healthful and also that are delicious.
And doctor, why do we need to be so concerned of the cholesterol that appears in our food?
Well, first of all, 1 in 3 Americans over age 20 has an elevated cholesterol, and cholesterol is a major cardiovascular risk factor. Not only a risk factor for heart attack, but a risk factor for stroke. The important thing is that it's a modifiable risk factor, and if we lower cholesterol, we're going to reduce the rate of heart attack, we're going to reduce the rate of stroke and other vascular disease. So this is, lowering your cholesterol is part of a comprehensive program to reduce risk, to be healthy, and it involves a change in mindset.
Doctor, I've always wondered, of cholesterol in our body, how much of it originates from the food and how much is produced from our body?
Well, I think it's a tough question to answer. I think it's a good question, but I think it's a tough question to answer because cholesterol levels in great part are genetically determined. Some families have inordinately high cholesterols. Other families have moderate cholesterols, and there are genetic predispositions that will account for part of your cholesterol level. I think most of your cholesterol level is determined by metabolism, but dietary sources of cholesterol can aggravate or elevate your cholesterol. Cholesterol is not a bad thing. It's part of every cell in our body. The problem is that when we take in too much saturated fat and we cannot metabolize it and take in too much cholesterol, the levels increase and they account for vascular disease or atherosclerosis.
All right, Joe, I got to ask you this question. You love to cook food, but when it comes to lowering our cholesterol, is there actually food that we can cook that's still yummy?
I mean, I think that As the doctor said, it's really about moderation. So everything in moderation, right? Even in life, whether exercise or eating or whatever. But it's just about making strategic decisions. You know, instead of rendering bacon fat, maybe you use olive oil. You know, don't use butter. Use ingredients that are more kind of flavor profile, like really bursting in flavor, like things like San Marzano tomatoes, garlic, lemons, citrus. You know, flavor your food in a way that inspires you without bogging it down with a lot of saturated fat, and at all cost avoid processed food. You know, really go down the food chain and get to the simplest. Combining great simple ingredients in a simple way is really the way to put the best food in your body.
Well, what is the Heart of the Kitchen program, and how can we get more involved?
Well, if you go to heartinthekitchen.com, so all these recipes will be on there, and some of my cooking tips, you know, they'll be on there as well. And then I think you can click through to get, you know, information about treatment options from Pfizer as well. But really, it's about sensibility, and I think that exercise is also a big factor. For me, it was a balance between eating right, exercising, and just, you know, knowing what my medical situation was.
Well, Joe, you know I couldn't leave this segment without asking you for one great recipe we should all try this week.
All right, so everyone should. I think that pasta is back. You know, there was a period people were saying, you know, carbohydrates no good for you, bad for you, and I'm calling that out. I'm saying that pasta in the right portion sizes. I think that we have a hard time in America understanding what the right portion size for pasta is, which is 100 grams. So that's like about as much spaghetti it would fit into a round quarter, or like that size. And a pomodoro sauce. So you got to use San Marzano tomatoes. Those are a specific type of tomato that come from Italy. And you just saute them with a little bit of garlic and olive oil, lightly cook them, nice and fluffy. Pasta, buy a good quality pasta. Some of the national brands are great, like Barilla di Cecco. If not, artisanal pasta. Boil it with the right amount of salt. And that is a soulful, simple, delicious dish. You know, even a little bit of grana padano or grated cheese on it is terrific. Everything in moderation. Portion, cheese, fats, olive oil. Delicious dish, good for you and good for your health.
I'll certainly let you know, Joe, how that turns out when I cook it. But once again, remind us what the website is again.
Well, again, the website that we have is theheartinthekitchen.com. Now, not only will you find these recipes, but you're going to find important information about cholesterol. You're going to get, there's informational sections that will talk to you about cholesterol and heart disease. There's a risk calculator that will help you calculate your risk of future cardiovascular disease. If you're taking a medication like Lipitor, there's a section that talks to you about the need for taking your medication on a regular basis, and talks to you a little bit about the risk and the benefits of the medication. And there's some other important hints for a healthy lifestyle. Again, that's theheartinthekitchen.com.
Gentlemen, a salute to both of you, your passion for this subject matter, and all the great information you shared.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
If you want to see other Health Beat segments, simply log on to our Get Connected website at contv.com. Well, we're headed to the Caribbean. Just across the way sits Cartagena here in Colombia, celebrating its 200th anniversary with spice, flavor, and passion. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for watching. Are you tired of negative news? We are.
And that's why we're creating a movement.
By keeping it real.
With what you need to know.
It's more than what's happening.
It's bringing hope back to our lives.
So go to contv.com and join our movement.